Hello, welcome to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, a podcast helping people to understand their horses better, to provide solutions in a calm, connected way. I'm Jenny Barnes.
And I'm Mark Langley.
This week we're going to talk about horses that have shown signs of defensive aggression for different reasons. And we're going to ask Mark's advice on how we can manage these emotions that they're showing to us, and gain his insights on how we can help these horses as well. So, Mark, the first question for this session is from Laura. And she has a daughter's pony who's just finished stomach ulcer treatment. And because of the ulcers, she's become quite aggressive to tack up and to rug. Although she can see her softening a little using the approach and retreat method, she still pins her ears and will kick out occasionally. She's done a lot of leading with her, and she finds that if she can keep her walking forward following a feel, she can tuck and rug up with her staying soft. Her question is this a good way of doing things for a while, or is she teaching her a bad habit by not standing still? And Laura's in the UK, so she's looking forward to seeing you when you're over there in May.
Oh, good, Laura. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to going over there. Oops, sorry, just had a crash. Laura, so basically... what you're doing is right in the sense of offering your horse an alternative. So it'd only be, walking away would only be a problem if the horse was just thinking that girthing means walking away all the time and it starts to fidget and walk away with anxiety. But if you're offering a horse a pathway feel through the lead rope or something like that and asking your horse to move, to give them a little alternative for that girthing, then that's not such a problem. As long as you get to a stage that you can sort of stop the leading process and the horse will stand while you rug and girth and things like that. But like what you were saying about using the approach and retreat method, that's just kind of, listening to your horse. And when it gets a little anxious, you might, back off on the girth or not go any tighter and then loosen up. And then, and when you see the horse soften, so you get to a certain, so I guess approach and retreat, what I'll say is you girth up till the horse gets to a certain point. If you start to notice a slight bit of a change in sort of going from softness to hardness, and then you wait a little till the horse softens and you release the pressure. It is a long and tedious process that, and though you're listening to your horse, so it is still good. I think it's better to give the horse more of an alternative, because to me, I think what empowers horses more being able to do something which gives them a slight distraction to what's happening, but also being able to move their feet. So like what you're doing with the leading, you're distracting the horse a little bit, because the feeling of having to stand still and put up with something that you don't like is usually what causes that, freeze and brace and more aggression in horses. So something that I do a lot, and I think is really good for girthing issues is, I put a long belly rope around the horse, and I stand ahead of them a fair way ahead of them. So it's between them and the rope, not between me and the rope. Which means I'm a fair few meters away from the horse, so they can't sort of nip at me or do things like that. And then I just kind of pull on the rope. And when they sort of get tight, I'll just keep the pressure on them a little bit until they, they'll get aggressive and they'll do things. But I'll keep, I might even put a rhythmic pressure in there until they move their feet a little bit and lead. And what that does is they go, oh, I'm tired, I can't do anything about it, I'm helpless. But then when they move a little bit, the pressure frees up a bit, so they control the pressure by moving a little bit. And that usually gets them to soften a lot quicker, because movement and is usually a better way to soften a horse's thoughts if it's good movement, not that sort of flight movement. But yeah, so if you get them to lead with that belly rope, it's going to soften them a lot. But the problem is well, it's not a problem if you I guess complete the leading with the belly rope. So everyone out listening right now is going to go, oh, gee, that means every time I saddle my horse, it's going to walk away because I'm girthing it up, and that means walk. But what I do is, once the horse can lead forward, I'll lead them up to a spot where I'm standing grounded, and I'll lead them to where I'm going to do the girth, and then I'll just gently play with the girth a little bit, just handle them with it. And I'll just start the girthing very, very softly and quietly. So once they've sort of got out of that freeze, kind of get angry, get all tight, they become aware, and they're a bit softer at moving forward to that girth, then they're generally going to give you softer thoughts around the girthing anyway. So then when you get in and you start to pull up on that girth, if they think, oh, I might sort of do, you'll see them thinking, oh, should I get aggressive or should I walk forward? And they'll be sort of toying between the two thoughts. So there's actually a softer thought lingering in there, or an alternative to turning around and biting and being really nibbly. And when you see that thought change, and they're weighing between the two, you just loosen up a bit and just say, oh, it's neither one of those, but being soft is good. And then you go again. And if they walk forward and they walk off a little bit, well, I just let them walk out, and I kind of pull the girth back towards me, and it feels like they're getting a little restricted as they walk off. So what ends up happening, instead of the girth being a forward leading cue kind of thing, it's a pathway. So when they go out further, you can pull them back in, and they can lead back in, they can lead forwards, and eventually they can lead backwards with it. But when you pull the girth straight upright and your feet are centered and grounded, then when you pull that girth straight up, what happens is they just softly know that you're not going anywhere, they're not going anywhere, and they can understand that the girth is just they're being handled with the girth and accepting the girth. So yeah, if you sort of work on those things, you'll generally get pretty good softness. But what you're doing by asking them to lead through a lead rope, that's fine too. So sometimes when you girth up and they get a little tight and they're going to do something, or they get a little anxious and you'll get hard thoughts, then you just take the lead rope and maybe rock them forward, rock them back a little, rock them forward, and you hold the same pressure. You don't go any tighter on the girth, and you just rock them forwards and backwards in the lead rope until they soften into that lead rope and they're moving their feet softly and swaying forwards and backwards. And then when they're like that, then you can just sort of loosen the girth and let them stand a little, and then you go again. And that's also another a way that, like what you've been doing. But as I say, instead of your horse walking around while you're doing it, you're actually instigating that forwards and backwards, and the horse gets, loosed and soft, and then, frees them up a lot more. So either one of those things, I'd probably incorporate both of those things to help with the girthing.
So the next question we have for you is from Maybelline, and she has a rather shut down dressage horse who was ridden by holding into a frame, and she's been trying to get him out of his shut down state, and he's starting to voice out his thoughts a lot more, and because of that, he's much more defensive with the girth, the saddle, backing, and the feed bucket. She's also been having a lot of problems with him, just trying to get him to go backwards. So she's a 15-year-old Andalusian warmblood and thoroughbred. She's had him for a year. He wasn't ever taught how to lead, so she's been working on it whenever she's had a chance. And she said that she started to see a little bit of improvement, but not a lot. Now, she remembers that you told everybody once that if we're doing the same thing for a while without improvement, we're probably doing it wrong, or something has to change. So she's wondering about this because she's still rather stuck on the backing. And when she's asked for a flowing of movement back and forth, it's like dragging her own body weight. His feet get stuck after about 3 steps. He'll fight with the pressure. He'll twist his head, lean on the hand. And whereas it used to just be 1 step. So now she sort of feels that they do have a bit of progress because he's making 3 steps, but it is rather slow. She's also wondering, because of this difficulty in backing, how do we know it's not due to physical pain?
Yeah, that's where you have to get sort of, I guess, other professionals in and go over your horse. But pain is caused through brace as well. So a lot of horses are very stuck, and they're stuck in the mind, so their body's constantly braced. So they never free up in their body enough to be able to heal, whether it be muscles, ligaments, anything. So, horses that are braced on their forehand, they only get ridden for a little bit and they're sore in the shoulders, all that sort of thing. So, people have to get body workers out all the time to work on them and, help free them, loosen them up and stuff like that. So it's a revolving door which never gets quite fixed. You're just going around and around and around in circles. So you have to soften a horse's mind up to have a horse that doesn't break down all the time physically. So yeah, it's hard to know because, someone might come out and say, okay, I think your horse is sore here, here, and here. But I've had a lot of horses that have been deemed sore, or, just a talk to a lady I did today. I helped her with a horse online, and, the horse sort of, had stifle locking issues, but the stifle, if it's only minor stifle locking issues, it's more pronounced when the horse is dull, carrying a brace, things like that. But when the horses kind of wake up and they get aware of themselves, they move a lot better, and those, even stifle locking issues will actually, if they're not major stifle locking issues, will actually start to, not be as prevalent. So it's hard to know, but I get the feeling, because your horse was kind of jammed into a frame and ridden like that for a while, that it's become very resilient and resistant to pressure. And it's a mental thing, and it's not that easy just to sort of go, right, I'm going to do forwards and backwards lessons and get my horse soft. So that's why you can tend to feel like you're doing the same thing over and over and over and not getting a change, because some horses, if we don't get that serious sort of change of thought in them, or that bit of desire starting to happen, it's still a grind to them, and they'll grind all day long. And though we've changed some of our techniques, because we haven't, as I say, they're not awakened. Yep.
So is it like, Mark, they're actually blocking, it's even though she's not sort of doing things that would cause a brace, his response is to block out the education. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, he's blocking out the pressure, and his mind's still on leaning on pressure, not following the feel and changing his thoughts. So unless the pressure's clear enough to make a change on him, then what's going to happen is he's going to just go, I'm still just leaning on pressure. And then sometimes they get irritable and start to do other sorts of things because of that. So, there's little lessons I've tried with horses that have been shut down for years, and had some really good results in where I've just held the knot underneath their chin quietly, just put a little lift in it. And when I see their eyes go dull, I just put a quick upward, like electric pulse, where I go like this, a quick one, and they wake up and they go, where did that come from? And it's not enough, it heightens their awareness, and it's sort of out of the usual, and even something like that's enough to make a horse go, oh, what was that? And then you just hold the knot again, and you just sort of slight lift. And if you don't see some sort of twitches in the system, and the horse starting to go, I wonder what's happening, you might do another little upward electric kind of like up like that, and they go, oh, what was that? And then after sort of 5 or 6 goes, you put your hand underneath their chin, and you'll see the whole mind and body come to life and go, oh, maybe I might consider what's happening underneath my chin for a second. And you see them come into a different state of awareness, because usually a lot of those horses, when you touch on the rein or touch on a rope around, it's an automatic kind of like ka-chink in their mind where they go, and so you're dealing with the wrong mindset for them to even take on information. And just because it's fresh on my mind, and I think I mentioned it just in the other podcast about a mule I just worked at the last clinic, and she'd been working a lot of stuff that we did at the clinic she was doing at home, but she didn't have quite a lot of, she was doing it but not making a lot of progress. And she knows now, understands why, is because the mule was kind of shutting out most of it. So if she did all these things, the mule was only learning 15% of what she was showing it. So that other 85% was pretty well wasted. So because she wasn't in the right state of awareness. And when we got her in the right state of awareness, she picked up things very quickly, became very soft. So everything we did was learnt information that will be retained, as opposed to information that's not retained. So that's why you'll see me sometimes do a lesson. So that little electric bump, obviously I'm not going to say to everyone, just go and just do that, but you could experiment with it where it's just a little, a push up underneath their chin, and they'll go, oh, and then it just wakes them up. And as I said, it's a bit unusual to them. So they because they like the horses get used to our rhythm and stuff like that. So if they're used to our rhythm, and they interpret what's going to happen before it happens sometimes, and that's why they can sort of stay dull for a while. So when things that are slightly unusual happen, then what happens is the horse starts to pay attention. And I've got my story that I tell. It's the new conspiracy theory about the government breeding these special magpies, and these magpies are designed to be very stealth and hide very well, and they've been breeding them for years because they're worried that the future generations may not work as hard. So they're trying to sort of get kids off their phones. So what they've done is they've hidden all these magpies in these trees all around the schools in Australia, and these magpies hide away in the trees. Nobody really knows where they are, but when they're walking home from school and they're on their phone, staring at their phone in a sort of a land of in a very unaware state, all of a sudden these random magpies swoop, and they're really aggressive swoopers, and they swoop down and they disappear. And then the kids go, geez, where'd that come from? And then within about 3 swoops, the kids they've figured out that the kids have put their phones away. They're starting to stand up straighter, and they're actually walking with a lot of awareness. And actually, it's even prevented a lot of kids from getting run over and stuff like that, because they're actually watching the roads. They're seeing cyclists go by, all these sorts of things. So that's the magpie experiment. So that's the latest conspiracy theory that I've made up. But it's a bit of a joke that I say to people, but sometimes when something happens out of the blue that a horse wasn't prepared for, it becomes responsible for its own awareness, opposed to us always going, wake up now, do this now, do that now. So they have to be responsible for their own awareness. And it's very important that sometimes, we sort of throw some things in there just to sort of say, I can't control the world. I can't control the things around me. Things happen out of my jurisdiction, and you may have to be more alert to pay attention to that, and then the horses become more responsible for their own awareness. So when you're training those horses that are shutting down and stuff like that, or shutting out information, there's little random things you can do every now and again that the horse didn't expect, that suddenly makes them have their own natural awareness, and they're responsible for it, opposed to us being responsible for it. And that's why sometimes I'll use a flag, and I might just randomly just flick a flag over a horse's ear and make it disappear in a microsecond, just so the horse goes, oh, what was that? I didn't see that coming. Because a safe horse is an aware horse, an unsafe horse is an unaware horse. And I know people get worried about maybe spooking their horses or something like that, but the horses, as I say, the ones that think through situations so much better are the ones that are vigilant, sort of vigilant and naturally aware. And when you're backing up your horse, what you could do every now and again, as you're putting a feel on that rope, like I said, there was that little bump thing that I talked about, that upward little shock that kind of wakes them up a little bit. Or you could have the little, the flag, and just put a little flick over one ear or something, or above the wither for a second, and the horse will go, oh, where was that? And then as they're awake, you just ask them to back up for a second, and you don't do a long back up, you just do a little one, as long as they've got a bit of life in it and awareness. And if they push and wriggle, it's probably better than them kind of just dulling out. So they will push, and you might have to firm up a little bit and say, well, pushing's not available. But the horses that are pushing and wriggling usually learn more than the ones that are just kind of setting and bracing. So anyway, just something to think about. But the magpie experiment is one you can sort of throw in there as well.
Because I can imagine for people like Maybelline, who have this sort of horse that's really had a lot of pressure put on it in the past, the last thing you want to do is this sort of new owner that's trying to offer an alternative path, is put pressure on to pull on that lead rope and keep pulling, because that's just not getting you anywhere. Like you said, you're dragging an anvil anyway. So what you're sort of doing is creating an awareness that will sort of a little bit of a shock factor, I suppose. I mean, that's essentially what it is, but not to spook them, but enough just to create that awareness in their mind so that they're just in the right conscious to learn. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. it will frighten them a little bit, but you've got to sort of, but you've got to think about it like this: is the horse has been under a lot of pressure for a long time, and vast amounts of pressure, and
yes,
kind of worried by all that pressure. So a random here and there, the horse will be able to cope with, but it's just got to be enough to get it into the aware side of the awareness out. But then when you come in to ask the question, you're probably going to be asking quite softly because the horse is aware. And yeah, they'll come out of their shell, right. And then all of a sudden you'll see lots of things. I've seen lots of horses at clinics that have just, I've done like little random sort of, especially like ones that have come in. Like the other day I had a little Brumby come in. He was so shut down, just sort of like, but he'd been through 3 owners, and I actually used the belly rope to create awareness on him, because even the flag was kind of like, oh yeah, I've been desensitized. I've probably been tarps all over me, all that sort of thing. And he was just la, 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 la. And I said, I don't really want you to get on this horse because I can't read this horse. So you can't read this horse because, so horses, they say horses don't lie, but horses have been taught to withhold the truth. So what that means is because they're shutting out, they're not communicating. So they're holding all their anxiety inside, and they're not letting it flow in and out. And flowing in and out is doing something about anxiety as it happens. Whether it be looking away, whether it be moving a step, doesn't matter. As long as the horse is thinking about anxiety and dealing with it constantly, then it's communicating to us. So what I did with that horse is I actually did the sort of the quick bump with the belly rope, and it went, oh, I've never felt that before. And you could see it suddenly go, oh, I got a little bit frightened. But then it showed me how it felt about all the stuff, because when I started to pull the belly rope, it started to hump a bit. And I said, see, all that's in there. It's just hidden away. So if you actually rode it, all it would take is something to spook it, and that would go, it would really buck with the saddle and explode. But once I'd made awareness with the belly rope, or created awareness, then the horse actually started to, after the lesson, it was sniffing on us. It was sort of very open. It was very soft, and it kind of felt good about itself, because it didn't like being hidden away like that.
It's fascinating listening to you about the different stories and the different horses that you've helped come out of these areas. I just want to touch on something that you mentioned there, a couple of things. So this concept of how how you can do this, as quite a unique, very skilled trainer, how you can kind of dabble with a little bit of pressure here and there, and it's pressure that can actually help a horse cope with pressure. And that art, that skill, if anyone's really interested in how Mark does that and wants to learn more about it, just leave a comment for us at the end of this podcast. We'd love to hear what you think, because we can get him to do a session literally just on that topic if it interests enough of you. And also, for those of you who are in the UK and listening to this, obviously Mark is able to bring horses out of these shutdown situations and reduce their anxiety and get them to cope in our world, and show you a whole load of ways of looking at horses in a different way, so you can see these emotions that they're carrying. If you're interested in seeing Mark, watch him train these sorts of horses. He's doing a demonstration at Berry Farm in Leighton Buzzard on Friday the 26th of May. If you head to our website, you can get tickets to see him. That's equineability.com.au. Thank you very much, Mark, and we will talk to you very again soon.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jenny.
You can learn more from Mark online through his online training videos. Just search Mark Langley Horsemanship. There's over 380 training videos which everyone has access to with a 7-day free trial. If you like what you see, it's just $15 a month from there. That's help where you need it.